Hello, and welcome back to Method News, where we talk about science-based manifestation methods and concepts. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're into this topic. Let's get started. Today, we're talking about how stereotypes shape your reality and how your manifestations come out based on stereotyping and cognitive bias and just how to develop those cognitive boundaries around stereotyping. Now, the important thing to understand is that neural stereotypes are a differentiation system. They're a context system trying to make sense of the world by categorizing different systems, different patterns, and trying to recognize danger. We are always biological survival systems. And we have different temperaments. We have different types of systems. Our boundaries are different. I knew someone whose biggest boundary that I've ever seen, like they were so easygoing in every other way, so giving and just, so kind. But the second you touched their chair that they sat in, like it was one of those, lazy boy type chairs. It might have actually been a lazy boy. And, they just loved that chair so much. They did not want anybody sitting in it. They didn't want anybody touching it. This is my chair. This is the boundary. Stay away from my chair, you know. And some people they are very free with their boundaries. Some people are very rigid, but it is not up to you to direct other systems, to tell other adult systems what to do or how to be. And remember that we are all highly automated, if not completely. Like sometimes I'm not sure, like even in observer mode, is this just my observer mode that's automation? But I have to assume that my observer mode is helping me reprogram myself because I can see the results of the programming. So I'm fairly certain that observer mode is the best way to actually break through your system automation of all your core programs and all the system programming you've had unconsciously since then, right? If you can pay attention to what you're doing, pause and pivot, then you can change the underlying protocols. And if you can receive more information through your mental filters, through your reticular activating system, your brain filters everything in reality based on your story, based on your beliefs, based on your stereotypes and your biases. So your cognitive boundaries are designed to keep you understandable to yourself, to keep life and reality and story and other people understandable so you can find what to relate to, so you can understand what to do, and your brain can predict what's coming next for the sake of your survival. But it can create a lot of limiting identities. Like, let's say you had a bad experience with someone from a particular group, right? We don't need to name any names. A lot of people have experienced this because, even if it comes from your group, there's a sort of biological instinct that if someone seems different, that they might be more dangerous, that they might not be like us. But trust me, all humans are the same. We're biological programs. We're just systems running on our automation most of the time. And well, the output is based on our cultural influences, what our systems adapted to the most, what it took on and confirmed and said was part of us that felt right, especially in those developmental times, right? But when something happens and let's say you have a negative interaction with somebody who seems different for whatever reason, right? Then your brain's gonna make a little shortcut called a stereotype that says everybody who looks like this or acts like this is like this, right? Because it has to narrow where you're going to go because it thinks if you have a bad social interaction, that could be the end of you, right? But doing that can be like, I don't want to be like them, so I can't do that. Here's a good one I will name because everyone talks about this all the time, and it's almost like a bias that everybody who is not rich celebrates, right? But let's look at what that stereotype is doing to a manifestation of becoming rich. So rich people are bad, right? This is the stereotype. This is a very common stereotype. Rich people are evil. They're using everybody. They stole all the money. They took everything, right? This is a scarcity mindset. It is very deeply ingrained into the system. I see it everywhere, and I even see it myself, even though I've tried so hard to eliminate it. But this is the thing, if you see that automation and you can't necessarily always completely get rid of it, you want to more to it. You want to add more to the program. So if I feel that, oh, these rich people are bad, like if I'm watching the news and I see that, some rich group or whatever, bought a bunch of property and destroyed neighborhoods, right? We all see some of those things happening with data centers, right? Let's say I start getting an unconscious thought or a preconscious thought where it's just starting to come to me like, oh yeah, these people are terrible and it's because of the money and they have all this money and still all this greed. No, what I actually see is people who are terrified, not terrible. Yes, their actions are terrible, but they're afraid that they're going to miss the boat and lose everything that they have to someone else. So their rational thinking is out the window, right? But if you are in control of yourself, you are sovereign of yourself, having money is the hugest blessing ever. It can help you be the biggest philanthropist. It makes me think I just saw this thing about Steve Irwin, rest in peace, that he was saying he was doing this interview and it was like years ago. It showed up on my YouTube. And he was talking about how all of the money he gets, he wants to put into every conservation. He wants to do everything. So anytime I start thinking at the back of my mind, I have an if-then protocol. If I think of someone is evil because they are rich, because they have money, who's the first person that I can think of who is not evil because they have money? Doesn't make the person bad or good. It just accentuates what is already there. It amplifies it because money is energy. Money represents value, but it is not value in and of itself. So it's important to differentiate, and cultivate that culture curiosity, being curious about people. Look for the traits in someone that are like counter, like opposite to your stereotype of them. Then question your filters. Because remember, your brain is literally going to fill in the information for whatever gaps you have about this person or group or situation, right? And challenging those assertions, those absolute beliefs that this person is this or that, it helps you become more flexible in your own identity and in your own self-acceptance and your own self-curiosity. So you can release some resistance and embrace some new personality programs that were in your shadow and you never even thought about letting yourself have access to, you know? And that's really going to open you up to the identity shifts for manifesting, whatever you're going for. But you can't manifest something that you're not perceiving yet if you're rigid that this or that aspect of it is is completely bad. I'm not going to consider it whatsoever. In some cases, there are things you want to consider never doing, especially things that harm other people, damage the environment, things that are destructive without being creative in balance, right? Because it depends on what the situation is and the approach. I can't pick something immediately and say it's bad or good. I'm very neutral. I'm like, I want to see what the information is, and I may need more information. I'm going to change my mind over and over and over again if I have to. That's one of the things that irritates me the most is like cliche of, oh my gosh, why are you changing your mind again? Because I'm going to get it right. Yeah. I'm not just going to sit there and go, oh, well, I decided this, so now I have to be married to it for the rest of my existence. No, I'm going to change my mind when new information comes in. I'm going to upgrade and adapt my current database. I mean, that's the only thing to me that makes sense. So when you cultivate the curiosity and you start adding more information to your database and you start challenging these presets and these assumptions, you're going to develop a habit of it naturally coming back to you to go, I've had the questions come back to me now. Like I don't have to actively ask them to ask me, okay, why did you really think that? What are you really feeling about that? And where did you get that idea? And what is your evidence? Right? So now I'm definitely directing myself from the unconscious. And this is where you want to be. When you want to make a big shift, you have to pace it because the brain gets exhausted very quickly and it can be very uncomfortable. Our brains use the same pain receptors for emotional pain and for physical pain. And it can exhaust your system really quickly, these stress hormones flooding you, right? So you want to pace yourself when making these changes, but like cultivate that flexibility of being more accepting and more open to the information you're receiving, even if it seems counter or uncomfortable to what you thought was true before. And remember that you never ever see objective reality, ever. You're only ever going to see the filter of you on everything and everyone else. You're always seeing you. You're always seeing you reflected back to you. Now, you can watch people's patterns and you can keep track of that, but you can never know what's going on their planet, inside their inner world, just like they can never know what's going on with you. So their opinions of you are not, you know, they're not completely valid. They may have opinions about your actions or your behaviors and be specific about that, but they are not in you to see what's going on and to make those, those assertions that they know what is best for you if you're an adult. No, no, no. You can figure out what is best for you far better than anyone else can. So it's important that you become sovereign and rule yourself so that you don't fall into these other programs and these stereotypes and these biases and these us versus them mentalities and, wasting up all your manifestation energy on illusions, basically, because we are all one thing. We are all nodes in one body. This is one living human race and it's all attached to the one living universe. It's all connected. We're all one thing. It just appears individual at this moment. So I hope this helped you to understand a little bit more about stereotypes, how they affect your perceptions of reality and your manifestations, and some ways to just sort of develop that curiosity so that you can be a little more open, a little more identity flexible, and perceive the general reality in your story with a little bit more light. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and sign up for the Method News newsletter in the description below.